Hey guys, Jason here with Damien, and we are back for the final episode of TCG Revisited. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about the single-player decks. Well, what these two have in common is that we once described them as solitaire decks, which I understand is not a real playstyle, but I think you get what I mean. So Damien, how do you feel about these decks, the Survivors and Balesk Baj? I feel like I know what you're going to say, but I would like to hear it from you.
I think they're pretty fun to play.
Yes, this is definitely a surprise for me. I thought you would have been a bit of a hater, but it's good to know that you don't have negative feelings towards these decks. Like in the previous episode, we're only going to talk about two decks because we only have two, and then we will talk about a theoretical third deck, but more on that later. So to get this party started, we'll talk about the Survivors first. Now, this is a pretty clean-looking deck list, if I do say so myself. Now, with Survivors, I think our list is actually pretty good. I think it's one of the Season 1 lists that has aged rather well. I suppose this is a testament to the strength of Survivors as a concept, but what I'd like to talk about today are two slightly different approaches to Survivors. The first approach is Turbo Mode. So this is when we go super thick on the ramp cards, which we have here. We have 4 Mushroom, 4 Fairy Life, and 3 Bronze Arm. So this obviously gives us great consistency in the early game to help with that setup. And I think it's also very important because it makes the top decks more potent. Once you top deck a factory, you're off to the races. There is an obvious downside in these being bricks in the later stages of the game. So what do you think, Damien? Do you like the ramp-heavy approach to Survivors?
I don't see it working without it because it's such a huge play style around Factory Shell that you just have to get it out to do anything at all. I think you just really need to ramp into it.
I don't disagree with that, and I think we did put in a lot of these ramp cards for a reason. But the second approach to Survivors, in my view, with this 3-color build, is good stuff. Like what if we cut down on some of the mana ramp, not all, and then squeeze in some extra, some board wipes, some cranium clamp. I think this deck suffers a lot when it whiffs its key cards. And I think there's an argument to be made that board wipes or cranium clamp are good backup plays. They forego advancing the win condition, but they do set the opponent back. What do you think of that?
I think it would be interesting to see how that would work. I just feel like it would make it a lot weaker without getting Factory Shell out on time. When you're too busy trying to control, you get stuck. You don't have enough mana ramp. You're charging every turn to try to hit 6. I think you're gonna get stuck.
Right. Okay, I see where you're going with this. Okay. So it doesn't bother you that, top decking a late game Fairy Life? Or is that just a downside that we're willing to live with because it's a necessary evil of the deck?
I think how we've built it, we just had to take the hit. It'd be interesting to see if there's another way to build it, because the late game Fairy Life's pretty bad. Once you get your engine going, your top decks don't really matter anymore, right?
That is also true. That's a very valid point. We at the Gauntlet are resistant to change. We are stuck in our ways. But I think turbo decks are pretty cool. Another question that I had was, how do we feel about Burst Shot? Aggro decks have started using bigger early drops, rendering Burst Shot less effective. I think it is more specifically for rush decks, and so how do you feel about Burst Shot? I feel like this card has decreased in effectiveness with the passage of time in the Gauntlet format.
Yeah, we've also got pretty good trig count in this.
Yeah.
We have been using Soul Swap defensively.
Yes.
To put people's important creatures back. So I guess that sort of works. But yeah, it would definitely need to go in for some sort of board wipe, where it has to have some value.
But then, given the argument posed earlier, we don't want to play board wipes because that is time spent not playing survivors. Well, I guess it's different, right? Because we've already ramped, so it's just like what board wipe are we electing to play?
Yeah, I think like I remember like we barely ever played. We hardcasted Burst Shot anyways.
Yes, that's right.
It just cost way too much. You'd rather be playing 3 other survivors.
If that's the case, if we're hardly ever hardcasting it, does that mean we just should play it then, so we can still play it for free? Or were we just never hardcasting it because it wasn't good enough? Ooh.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Maybe if we had like a Vice, it would have been better.
Yeah, I do like Apocalypse Vice. Especially with all the ramp. Apocalypse Vice seems pretty good. Another question is, what about playing Dimension Gate or Rumbling Terrorhorn? I think this is an idea that you had most recently. So we could search for the factory and not just, rely on top decking one.
Yeah, like if you've got some in your shields, it's just your statistics of drawing it even worse. I like D-Gate in this, I think. It's relatively cheap, and you can sort of still focus on ramping. In Rumbling Terrorhorn, the curve's better, I guess, with Rumbling Terrorhorn, because you can ramp into 5, play it, and then get your factory shell. And I guess it's also soul swappable. But then I like the idea of like the D-Gate being a trig.
So how many copies were you thinking?
Probably not that much. I was like 1 or 2.
Yeah, 1 or 2. That seems reasonable. I think like what we did in another deck, in the Armorloids deck, is we went from 4 Fairy Life to 3 Fairy Life and 1 Dimension Gate, so we could search out Mirror Max.
All right. You'd need to try both of them, see which one's better.
Yeah. And what about Qtronic? Do you think 2 copies of Qtronic is sufficient? Especially knowing that if one is in the mana, we cannot get it back.
I think it's been pretty solid.
Okay, nice. To be honest, I think that rounds out the discussion on survivors. I feel like playing 3 Bronze Arm and 3 Smash Horn is like a little weird, but it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I don't think too much of this deck really needs to change. So, moving on to the next deck. We have Balesk Baj, the Time Burner. This is a pretty sweaty deck, to be honest. I think there's a lot of inefficiencies here. So I'm just going to get right into it. I think there are 2 talking points for Balesk Baj. One is, do we keep the same color composition? And then another is, do we update the colors? If we are doubling down on the Fire, Water, Darkness build, I think there are a lot of things that should probably change. Volcano Charger seems like it would be pretty good in this deck.
Yeah, I remember struggling with this in the early games, not having Volcano Charger, and then keep drawing into Corpse Charger.
Another thing I also felt strongly about was including a reliable alternate attacker in case Balesk Baj was somehow stopped, or if you just want to set up an easier path to victory with it. Gallic is cool, but he's not that practical. I really wanted to put 1 or 2 copies of Pyro in this deck, because what you could do is you could break with Pyro early, and then that puts your opponent on 4 shields, and then that sets up 2 Balesk Baj attacks, and then you can win. Whereas, if they're on 5 shields, then you need 3 Balesk Baj attacks. And also, having a cheap speed attacker just seems really good, because let's say Balesk Baj clears your opponent's shields, and then you somehow run into like a Terror Pit or something, or like they soul swap it away, then you're really not going to swing for face again, right? Like, what are you going to do? Have a Gallic stick, or like set up another Balesk Baj? So I really wanted to have an additional attacker. Do you agree with this, or am I crazy?
No, I think that makes sense. When you look at it, it's like nothing can attack other than those 5 cards. It's just that I think to put the 1 count in, it's hard to get it when you need it. I guess you've got Corpse and Thrash.
Yeah, you have Corpse and Thrash. You can search it out with Crystal Memory. So if you turn the 2 Galax into 2 Pyros, that's not so bad, right?
Oh, is that what you're trading? I like the Galax.
Oh, okay. You like the Galax, okay. So what?
I was thinking like to take something else for Pyro, but I guess 1/1 Gallic Pyro.
1/1 Gallic Pyro. Yeah, we can make it work, or maybe take the 4th Eureka Charger and squeeze something in. Yeah, but I really think this deck needs Pyro, or even like Bazagazil, to be honest.
Didn't it used to have Baz?
I'm not sure. I don't remember. Maybe in one of the early builds it did, but yeah, the later ones did not have Baz. And then when I Hall of Fame Slash Charger, I just put in 1 Crystal Memory and 1 Eureka Charger.
I feel like this should have Baz.
Yeah, it seems like it should have Baz, right? It's really sweaty.
Yeah, and it's like for a deck that's trying to stall until for the mana count, Baz is like a great stall card.
I agree. He is the stall master. Okay, this deck probably needs Baz. All right, we can do a one Pyro, 1 Baz, 1 Gallic. How about that?
Oh yeah, that's good.
And then another potential change is, can we cut down to 2 Balesk Baj or to 2 Lost Soul? Is maybe 3 Balesk Baj is too much? Like with this, because we do have search and we do have ways to get it out of mana. And we were just talking about with the survivors how 2 Q-Tronic is probably just right. Because Balesk Baj is like a brick, right?
Yeah, and there's so much retrieval as well. Like your Corpses, your Thrash, and you have so much draw as well. I remember not having any trouble finding him.
Yeah.
It was having too many of them that was the problem.
Yeah.
You've also got a lot of time to prepare to get him where you want him to be.
Yeah. True. Now, in saying that, I want to circle back to something that I mentioned at the start of the Balesk Baj conversation. If we want to fit in Volcano Charger, what do we take out for it? Especially keeping in mind we want to squeeze in Pyro and Baz.
Maybe a Corpse Charger?
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't run more than 2 Volcano Charges, right?
Okay. That's I guess we have Burst Shot, so that's kind of fine. And then you can also have Pyro as a synthetic Volcano Charger to police the field. So it's like we take out 1 Balesk Baj for Bazagazil, we take out 1 Gallic for Pyro, and then we take out 1 Eureka and 1 Corpse Charger for 2 Volcano Chargers.
Yeah,
that seems pretty good. Do we need another Crystal Memory? Especially if we're cutting down on Balesk Baj. And we have more one-ofs?
I don't know, because again, you can do the slash into Corpse Charger combo if you really need to. Unless you're searching for spells, but none of them are really like we've placed so many counts of them, we should always have them in our hands.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, I will accept that. All right. I think we got it. I think we got some pretty good changes for this list. we swapped out a 9-drop for an 8-drop. We've improved the mana curve. All right. Now, are you ready for the next version? I think this is the clear elephant in the room, because a lot of people in the comment sections, they're always like, you should play it with nature, guys. So here we go. This is from a Japanese blog site, and this is Balesk Baj with nature. I guess what nature does is it makes it less mid-range. I mean, it makes it more mid-rangey and less control-y. And I think what makes nature extra compelling is that it allows us to run Scarlet, so we aren't foiled by blockers. And between Soul Swap into Scarlet plus Cutthroat and maybe even Twin Cannon, the deck can be said to be more consistent thanks to the additional Evo Bait.
You're gonna have to just don't know these artworks are.
Okay, fair. So I think some of the funky artworks that you may not recognize are the water card in the top right hand corner. So this is, I think, I always get this confused. I think it's called Mystic Dreamscape, And it's like a super Thrash Crawler. It's a 4-mana spell, and I think it lets you get 3 cards back from your mana zone into your hand. The card in the bottom right-hand corner is Mystic Treasure Chest, and it lets you search your deck for a card, a non-nature card, and put it into your mana zone. And then the card at the bottom left is Ultimate Force, which is a Fighter Dual Fang effect on a 5-mana spell. So these are the weird ones. And then the thing above it is like the better version of Cryptic Totem, who does not need to be tapped to work. It's totally busted. Let's not talk about it. And then they also run Mana Bonanza, which is kind of mental, honestly. But yeah. But I guess if you Mana Bonanza, you can Scarlet Sky Terror into Balesk Baj. I don't think this list is the most optimized, especially for the TCG card pool. I think this only takes it up to set 9. But I thought it was interesting, and it would be a good visual reference for this concept.
Yeah. So how would Alwyn look for Soul Swap?
Yeah, so we would definitely play Soul Swap. I'm not so sure about this this engine of like Mystic Treasure Chest and Mystic Dreamscape. I think between like a lot of Ramp and Thrash Crawler, that's probably enough. We definitely do play Fairy Life. Ultimate Force, I'm honestly not so sure about, but it lets you turbo into Balesk Baj a lot better. I haven't put sufficient thought into it. I guess before we talk about what ours would look like, another question I want to ask is, how do you feel about playing Mana Bonanza?
All right, that works, eh?
Kinda.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, it is extremely funny.
I need to see it happen. I can't decide.
Yeah. It seems kind of hard to decide.
I would really like to see that. So yeah.
Yeah, Mana Bonanza would be so funny. Okay, I guess I would consider. Actually, wait. Let's think about the early game of this deck, right? So this deck for the early game, it has Energy Stream, it has Cutthroat, and it has Fairy Life. It actually doesn't have that much early game ramp, and I think that's a bit concerning. Especially because I think Ultimate Force is a lot better if you can like play it on turn 4. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot I would change. This deck feels very fragile to me. What do you think?
It feels very vulnerable without the darkness.
Yeah. No blockers.
Yeah.
Not many early drops. I guess it does play a lot of shield triggers. I mean, like 3 Surfer, 3 Burst Shot, 2 Tornado Flame, and then 4 Fairy Life.
Mana Nexus.
Yeah, Mana Nexus.
This looks pretty fun to play. It looks interesting, and it's a bit more single player than that one.
So, do you prefer the nature version as opposed to the darkness version?
I like Alwyn better, eh? It's just like I feel like this deck either runs or it doesn't.
Yeah.
There's so many cards that you're playing that just doesn't do anything.
Yeah, that's true. That's so true. All right. I agree, and I would prefer it if we didn't change the current list. But let's say we take out these mystic cards. Let's say this turns into like Bronze Arm Tribe. Okay? And then the thing at the top is like, I don't know, some combination of Crystal Memory and Energy Stream. Does that make it more palatable?
It would be interesting to try. I say that about everything, but yeah, I think this one is hard to say to compare until we actually try it.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of theory going on here. And I did want to bring this up because I think it is a worthwhile discussion, because we've gotten a lot of comments saying that we should play it with nature. And I guess if you don't play the version that we're playing, this is probably the most intuitive composition to go for, but Balesk Baj just seems inherently challenging to build. Alright, so I guess given the nature of the subject matter, it's hard for us to arrive at a conclusion on what route to go. But we are entertaining the idea now of a nature Balesk Baj. But yeah, it just seems easier for me to streamline this even better. Like, I think if we made more intelligent card choices, this would do kind of everything that the nature version does, right? You got a lot of ramp, and then you have control for added stability.
Yeah, I think we always say like nature's ramping, but then taking an extra turn is also another ramp as well. If you can waste someone's turn, you're getting another ramp in.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, wow, that is a very philosophical way to look at the game. I like it.
Even just Lost Soul by itself, you're buying like 2 to 3 turns. Yeah, that's another 2 or 3 ramps.
Kelvin was right when he said Damien looks at the game differently. It was in the context of Pokemon, but I think you have a very interesting mind for card games, and in a good way. Now, moving on to the final deck, the theoretical third deck, and it is this monstrosity. This is Phantasmal Horror Gigazald, and this is a deck list I took from a Japanese YouTube channel, and his channel is in the picture. I came across this really interesting deck, and I thought it used mostly cards from the TCG card pool, so I think that's pretty neat. It revolves around Phantasmal Horror Gigazald and Upheaval. And the way the deck works is you want to discard cards from your opponent's hand, and then you use Upheaval, which requires each player to switch their hand and their mana zone to try to lock them out of the game, right? You give them a big hand, but no mana. I mentioned in a previous video that there does exist a version of Hydro Hurricane that uses Guardians and Gigazald, but in a 40-card format, I don't think you'd be able to squeeze those into one list, and I think having Hydro and Gigazald, I think they'd be different enough, right? I would like to hear your thoughts, Damien. Give it to me. Tell me what I don't want to hear.
No, I think the idea around the deck was good. I don't know whether it was the matchups we did, but it just wasn't working.
Yeah, it was really sad. I really wanted this deck to work, and so I made some notes on what I thought the core issues were, and maybe we can talk about how we can potentially address them and see if we can inspire our faith in good old Gigazald. So one problem was that it's very fragile. The core strategy is easy to disrupt or circumvent. Another issue is the deck moves too slowly. I think you spend way too much time trying to set up, and it's not able to do much else, because it's like, yeah, you can set up, but you still have a win con to pursue. And the last is the big play, air quotes, big play, doesn't always cause a big enough swing in the game. Like in contrast to, say, like you play a Hydro Hurricane, you play Fortress, you play Plague, you play Bomedius. Once those cards like hit the board, it's like, oh my gosh. Whereas with this, you hit the Upheaval, and then the opponent's just like, oh, brother. But then there isn't a great sense of danger, Yeah,
because you still need to end up breaking to win.
So in saying that, Damien, fragility is a difficult one to address, so I probably shouldn't start with that. The deck moving too slowly, I'm not sure if it was you or I'm not sure if it was the other Jason that had a really good suggestion about playing Bloody Skeeto. Ghost Touch, I think, doesn't really do a whole lot for the deck, especially in this Lucky Ball infested climate that we live in. So, we could probably take out Ghost Touch for Bloody Skeeto that acts as early game defense, and then you just let Cranium Clamp do a lot of the heavy lifting at some point. And then Bloody Skeeto also acts as an additional body for Gigazald, because Gigazald is like, you can tap any darkness creature and then your opponent discards a card. So if Bloody Skeeto sticks, you can actually tap it, and then it's fodder for Gigazald, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't sound very excited. You sounded so much more excited earlier. Okay.
It's just interesting. I think it's just the cow we haven't seen in so long. I think, yeah, that could work. It's either like you just stall until you get your upheaval going, but I feel like it gives them so much time. I mean, like, unless you're versing aggro, Squeeto's not gonna do much.
Well, I think this deck could also use some Photoside. I'm not sure if that was your idea or if that was Jason's idea, but...
Oh yeah, Photoside would be good.
Yeah.
I think also looking at Upheaval in a way where you only like play it knowing what their mana zone is. You sort of get to you know their hand right after that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know like with their mana zone they can't do anything with that, then that's also pretty good. You don't necessarily need the value from it if they're just picking up cards that they can't use anyways.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I see where you're going with that. This deck is just so difficult to build. I was gonna say it's like Photoside and then some Diamond Cutter. No. Oh my gosh, this is like totally meme. But what if we just use this as the template for the Balam deck? You know, you play like 2 Photoside, you play 2 Gajira Butte, and then 2 Balam somehow. And there, you got the discard, you got the destruction, and no more upheaval.
I think we talked about that last time as well. Every chance we can use Balam, we're just like, maybe.
Yeah, that'll be a pretty interesting vehicle for Balam. Oh my gosh. All right, I think I've finally lost my mind, Damien. I think this is what's happened.
Did this win any tournaments?
I don't think so. Gigazald doesn't frequently come up in the blogs, and maybe in retrospect, that should have been my first clue. But yeah,
it's definitely interesting, and the I guess the Civ comp. I was gonna say we don't see it, but that's because we keep throwing in 4 Holy Ores into these decks.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. We don't often see just Water, Darkness, and I like this because it uses strategies that we don't currently use. I mean, maybe there's a reason for that. And it also uses a lot of unfamiliar cards, right? Like the whole Chimera package, Upheaval, maybe even Shadow Moon. Ooh, the return of Shadow Moon. Damien, are there any final thoughts you would like to share with the people?
I think we did pretty well with our decks. Like a lot of them we went through and was like, we're done, right? There's nothing to add.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the decks we built in the way that we would have the most fun playing them. We did pretty well. The Gauntlet meta.
Yeah, I agree. The Gauntlet metagame is my favorite metagame of all time. And if you ever want to give it a go, I highly encourage it. But the Gauntlet meta also was conceptualized in a way that was most like, it balanced the ideas of competitiveness, variety, fun, and I think there are a lot of workable concepts, and these decks are all within a pretty reasonable threshold. You know, they can compete with each other. So thank you, Damien. I'm glad that you believe in the work that we do.
Yeah, and also people don't know about all the failed decks. So
yes, that's true.
it's fine.
Yeah. For every deck for every idea that makes it into the videos, right? There are like 3 to 5 to 10 failed ideas that we scrapped. Yeah. All right. So I guess thank you guys for joining us on this journey. I hope I hope it was able to inspire some of you with some new ideas or get you to think about existing card choices that you might be making. And if there are any suggestions that you have for us, particularly in the Gigazald space, I would love to hear about them. So let me know in the comments. But yeah, that's all. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.